Hi, Roger. Respect the crowd.
Enjoy your family with the seat down.
Okay. Goodness.
Have a chair.
Well, Roger, we're glad you're here. What we wanted to do today was to recognize some of the extra effort of some special people in the cooperative system. Some people that have been very supportive of the Garden City Co-op. They're pillars to this group. And the reason we chose this setting in the boardroom is those of us that are on the board realize the commitment that it takes to be a board member. And the extra effort that our staff puts in, we can see it firsthand when we have our board meetings. But we realize that because of our name in the cooperative system, we're very well respected as Garden City Co-op. And we get to stand on the shoulder of giants and see that. And we realize it's not from all that we've done, but the people that come before us and have been good stewards of this cooperative. And one of the giants we want to recognize is Roger. And Roger was on this board from 1972 to 1984. Is that right?
Right.
Chairman from November of 1980 to October of 84. And term limited out then in 84 after 12 years. And you've done a lot of things for the Garden City Co-op, and we want to recognize you, and we want to give some opportunity for some other people to say a few things as well. So thank you for coming, and I know it's a surprise, but enjoy it.
What a surprise.
John?
Well, welcome, Roger, and it truly is an honor to get to be a part of this and to welcome you and your family. And as I said earlier, before you got here, it's a real honor to get to introduce some of the people that wanted to come and make comments about your commitment and your leadership here at the Garden City Co-op. So the first speaker that we have today will be a familiar face to you, although it's been a few years since you've seen him, and that's Dave Spears, who was the loan officer here for Garden City Co-op from Cobank. And actually, while everybody in the room understands your commitment to the co-op and what you've done here in your leadership, a lot of the credit for planning this and putting together comes back to a luncheon that I had with Dave, where he talked about your extraordinary service, and as we talked about it in the group, the board decided this would be an appropriate setting, and we wanted to bring some people in to visit with you and to thank you and your family for all the time. And so with that, I'd introduce Dave Spears, who is now Director of Marketing for Mid-Kansas Co-op, and at your time here at the Garden City Co-op as Chairman was the loan officer.
Roger, I want to appreciate the opportunity to be here to honor you. As John said, I first met you, I was just a loan officer right out of college. 1979, I started Cobank and signed Garden City Co-op as an account. You know, Harley and Otis and yourself, and I was telling John that during that time period, I learned a lot from this cooperative, from the leadership that you had through the board and through your management team. I've just been a wet behind the ears loan officer, and worked with Cobank then for, at that time, it was Wichita Bank for Cooperatives. You remember, right before Cobank ever came into existence, before they merged all the bank for cooperatives into Cobank. And so I had the opportunity to be your loan officer at this co-op, and we had some challenging times back then. I remember one year, I think I came to 15 board meetings in 1 year.
We had the feedlot.
We had the feedlot. That speaks for itself, right? But we had some good times, and I learned a lot. I had my own seat at the table. I think I sat up here at this table chair right here, and to my right was Bill Turntine. And Bill Turntine and I, we both shared the same candy dish. And at the time, and Bill was, every board member, every board has a numbers guy, and Bill was this board's numbers guy at the time. He went through every financial statement, a fine-tooth comb, and so it was an honor to sit at the table with you guys, to learn from leadership firsthand from yourself, and I carried that those lessons on forward through my career. And I owe a lot of what I learned and was able to take back to Washington, D.C. and work for Senator Bob Dole. I left CoBank and worked for Bob Dole for 7 years, and then served as chairman of the Commodity Futures Trading Commission for 5 years. So a lot of what I learned from yourself and from Otis and from Harley. And so when they mentioned the opportunity to come, I jumped at the opportunity to come and honor you, and just wanted to say I truly respect and honor what you brought to this cooperative. Your leadership, your vision, brought through some difficult times and set itself for the future. So it's an honor to be here.
Thank you.
Next, I'd relish the honor of introducing our next speaker, which would be Otis Moles, and dear friends, served as chairman right before you, and so Otis, I'd ask you for some comments.
Well, thank you. And Roger, it is an honor to be here, and I just can't find enough good words to say about how much I enjoyed working here. And over my career with cooperatives, and I've worked with a lot of directors, and Roger, you're one of the top. Always did appreciate it. One thing about Roger, he not only knew the numbers, he probably read them as well as Turrentine did. And Turrentine, for those of you who don't know, was a CPA, and so we did benefit from his expertise. But Roger not only knew the numbers, he knew how they worked. And there's a big difference in that, David, you know, that understanding them and knowing how they work and how they're predicting the future and what you can do is another thing. Roger understood that. And for commitment, I don't know anyone, any of the directors I've ever known, and literally I'm talking about hundreds of directors I've worked with, Roger is at the top. And for his commitment and dedication, you did the co-op tractor, didn't you?
Yes.
I don't know if any of you know that. Do you still have the tractor?
Yes, we do.
Yes, we
That's
do.
right over here in the Bandag.
My uncle bought it at a farm sale at Clay Center.
Yeah.
We'd been looking for one, and he went to sales, and I told him that if you ever found one, so he bought one, and we went back and got it.
Yeah. And Roger overhauled it and worked on it, got it ready, painted it up. Did you drive it in a parade?
No, I never got to drive it.
Anyway, that was one of the first things I began to understand about how dedicated Roger was to cooperatives. And when Roger was leaving the board, I was off the board then. Roger replaced me as chairman, but one of the things I remember thinking to myself, I was sorry to see Roger have to leave the board because I knew that the co-op was going to lose one of the best directors that they ever had. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Well, Roger, I've had the honor of driving that tractor and waving at you at several parades, and anytime you want to drive the tractor, it's over there ready. Battery's charged up and it's ready to go, so we still enjoy that. I share a special bond with Harley folks and having the honor to manage a place like Garden City Co-op, and so this certainly wouldn't be complete without Harley saying a few words about getting the opportunity to work for somebody like yourself. So Harley folks.
Thank you, John. Well, Roger, they've said a lot of good things about him, and I'll echo all those. Roger was raised in eastern Kansas on a dairy farm, and after going to K-State, why, he worked a little while as a dairy inspector, I believe. Then he went into the military and served over in Europe. He came home as a veteran. He applied for a homestead in South Dakota. They built a big reservoir up there in South Dakota, and you could homestead land, and they had a drawing or a lottery or something. And Roger and Vivian happened to win a half section of ground up there, able to take it over, and it was quite an adventure. It was probably tougher than homesteading in western Kansas back in those days. And then he came out here, had an opportunity when his father-in-law passed away to come to the Garden City, and I was fortunate that he did. I've had a little experience with board members. I might mention that I was here in the 50s with George Vove, and we had our board meetings across the street, and we had board members like Chet Reeve, Bob Ackley, Herb Clutter, Paul Davis, J.T. Lear, Ralph Miller, and so forth. And the Garden City Co-op's always been blessed with good board members. Whenever I attended meetings and so forth, I was complimented on the board members and their professional attitudes and appearances at these meetings. I might mention something about Roger. One time we had the opportunity to buy a railroad, and Roger and I talked it over quite a little, and we went to the board, and well, they weren't too interested in that railroad. Well, Roger come in one day and he says, "Hey, if the board doesn't buy that railroad," he says, "I'll buy it even if you have to resign from the board of directors." We come back to the board and they said, "We'll buy the railroad." It had to be a good purchase for the Garden City Co-op. But I can't express in words how much their leadership, all of those board of directors gave to me and so forth. And I would have to say, in view of March Madness, Roger is the #1 seed.
So as you all know, Roger served until 1984 as director and board chairman, but his commitment to the Garden City Co-op didn't end with his service on the board, and he has been a great mentor of mine and is good about catching me after every annual meeting and reminding me that we should restart the patron note program, that there are several things that he would like to see, and we take those seriously and under advisement every time. But I thought it would be really appropriate to have one of the employees that works with you and your family most closely, and Ryan Kennedy, say a few words to just reinforce the fact that you're still a co-op guy regardless of not serving on the board anymore. So Ryan Kennedy.
Well, as John mentioned, my name's Ryan Kennedy, and my relationship with Roger and Boyd and the family is a little bit different than the other people that have spoke here today. But I started off with CropQuest about 11 years ago as their agronomist, and got the pleasure of working with Roger and Boyd, and I'd take the field reports by the shop and drop them off when I was done at the end of the day. And I always got a good story out of Roger. You know, it might have been 30 or 40 or 50 years ago or something, but something that related back to farming, you know, a disaster they had clear back when or whatever. And I learned a lot about farming, a lot about no-tilling in particular, from Roger and Boyd, and you know, it's always been a pleasure to work for them. And then when I started at the co-op about 5 years ago, I was their been their salesman, and as an employee of the Garden City Co-op, you know, I see the value in the board members and the decisions they make, and you know, I just want to thank Roger for putting in 12 years on the board, and we definitely wouldn't be where we're at today without members like Roger. So I guess that's about all I've got. I do have one more story, actually. I was thinking about this morning a little bit. I didn't, you know, plan any speech or anything. I just kind of came in here and tried to wing it. But I was thinking this morning, when I was consulting for him with CropQuest, you know, there'd be several years there we went through a pretty bad drought, and kind of similar to what we're in now. And you know, the dryland milo crop would be on its last leg, and I'd go drop off the field reports, and they'd be calling for a little chance of rain. And I mean, this crop's like a week away from completely dying. Then I always say, it's going to rain tonight, it's going to make it. And Roger always said, we're pretty optimistic. Some years it made it, and some years it didn't. But I've sure learned a lot from working with you, Raj, on the farm, and appreciate everything you do.
Is there anybody from the family or anybody else that would like to make any comments? We'll give you a chance, Roger, but we've got a few more things to do.
I might say something just a little bit. You know, I just want to talk about Roger's commitment to this co-op. I mean, I saw it every day, and you know, I came home to farm in 1976, and he was still on the board, and I realized how much time this board took, and it was one of those things I never wanted to do. After seeing how much time he spent, it was something I didn't want to do, but it was something that he was committed to, and I realized the value of it, and I appreciate that because it's my co-op now, and you know, and I use it, and I appreciate it. And it's people like this that made it a strong co-op and is here today, and I appreciate it a lot. I appreciate the co-op a lot too.
Thank you, Boyd. Is there anybody else that'd like to add a comment, or? Well, Boyd, I'll turn it back over to you for recognition.
Right. Well, I've known Roger and Vivian were pretty classy for a long time, if they named their son Boyd. But
I'd just like to say what a humbling experience this is. But I have been committed to the co-op, and one of the big reasons is that South Dakota experience. We were up there 9 years, and when you're in a place like that where there's no chance for facilities at all, I mean, you know, whether it's grain or any fertilizer or anything, and you come back to Garden City and you see all this, and you appreciate it. I mean, you know, you just really appreciate the services that Garden City puts out. And I think that's where my commitment came from.
I might mention that Roger says the nearest market was 75 miles away. He'd haul hay up there to that old boy that was building the Sitting Bull monument up there. Crazy Horse. Long Indian. He'd trade hay in for lumber and so forth back there.
Now we traded hay for sheep.
well, in honor of the things that you've done for the Garden City Co-op and the cooperative system, we're inducting you into the Garden City Co-op Hall of Fame.
Goodness.
I was afraid I would pull that off. But this is all the time, you know, what we had specifically that we wanted to do. The rest of the time is up to you. If there's some more you want to say or visit about, and then we'll go to dinner together down the co-op center. Roger, we appreciate you.
Thank you, Roger. Do you want to ask blessing here?